Imagine holding a signed contract in your hands, but the ink on this document dried well, decades before you were even born.
Right.
And if you look closely at the fine print, you realize it details every single major challenge you are ever going to face.
Yeah, it's intense.
It is. It lists the latent resources you possess, but, haven't discovered yet. It even outlines the ultimate overarching purpose of your entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, it is quite literally a soul contract.
A literal blueprint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, when I first read that premise in our material for this deep dive today, I immediately thought of like a dystopian science fiction movie.
Oh, sure.
The idea that everything is pre-written and I'm just playing out a script, it makes me want to rebel instantly,
Which is honestly the most human reaction possible. I mean, we are conditioned, especially in modern times, right, to view our lives as a total blank slate.
Right, yeah. Like we're completely in charge.
Exactly. We want to believe we're just stumbling through a series of random, disconnected events, forging our destiny out of thin air.
Making it up as we go.
Yeah. But the perspective we're stepping into today, it doesn't just challenge that idea, it completely dismantles it.
It really does.
It suggests that the randomness you feel is actually a profound intentional architecture. And far from being some dystopian prison sentence, understanding that architecture is actually the only way to achieve genuine agency.
And that is the tightrope we are walking today. We're exploring Section 2 of Douglas Noblehorse's manuscript, NeoHermetic Astrology, a living synthesis.
Specifically, the section on NeoHermetic Architecture.
Right. And to be clear, we aren't looking at, newspaper horoscopes or broad personality quizzes here. We are going to map the actual journey of the soul.
The whole entire journey.
Tracing it from a vast, abstract, celestial blueprint all the way down into the heavy, breathing, incarnate reality of your everyday life.
It's important to clarify what this system is actually built to do, though, because Noblehorse isn't giving you a deterministic crystal ball so you can just sit on your couch and wait for fate to happen to you.
Right, it's not magic.
No, not at all. He's outlining a hyper-specific diagnostic framework. The goal of this entire section is to turn the individual into what he calls a specialized technician of the soul.
Okay, let's unpack this, because a technician needs to know how the machine works, right?
Precisely.
If I open the hood of my car, I can't just stare at the metal and hope it fixes itself. I need to know, what the engine is, how the steering wheel connects to the tires, what kind of fuel it takes.
You need the schematic.
Right. Get to the mechanics of the astrological chart, the signs, the planets, the math. We have to address the core metaphor that Noblehorse uses to describe the soul itself. Because it's not at all what I expected.
Yeah, it throws a lot of people off.
I always pictured the soul as this simple, singular, glowing orb of light, just a unified thing. But the text pulls from Plato's allegory of the chariot, which paints a much more complicated picture.
Yes, specifically from Plato's dialogue, the Phaedrus. I mean, it's arguably one of the most brilliant psychological and spiritual models ever conceived.
It really is striking.
Plato argues that the soul is not a noun. It is not a static thing. It's a composite vehicle. And more importantly, it's a dynamic struggle.
A struggle between different parts.
Exactly. He describes the soul as a charioteer who is desperately trying to drive a chariot pulled by two winged horses that want to go in completely different directions.
Right. You have the light horse and the dark horse.
Yes. So one horse is noble, representing our conscious will, our intellect, and our higher aspirations. It wants to soar up into the divine.
It's the part of us that wants to be better.
Right. And the other is a dark, unruly, heavily grounded horse. It represents our bodily appetites, our primal urges, and the fated material circumstances we're born into.
The heavy stuff.
The really heavy stuff. So the soul is the active, exhausting effort to hold the reins and keep those two radically different forces pulling the chariot forward instead of just ripping it apart.
Which brings up a massive logistical question. If the soul is this chariot, and it fundamentally belongs up in the heavens with the divine, how did it end up down here on Earth in a physical body?
Dealing with traffic jams and taxes.
Exactly. Traffic jams, broken bones, bad wifey. The text dedicates a huge portion of this section to what it calls involution, which is the descent of the soul, and evolution, which is the ascent.
Right.
Walk us through that descent, because reading it sounds less like a gentle journey and more like a terrifying plunge.
Oh, it's absolutely a cosmic plunge. I mean, involution is the process of the soul taking on density, layer by layer, in order to eventually take on physical form.
So it's starting from zero density.
Right. Imagine the soul starting way out in the deepest, most unfathomable reaches of the transpersonal realm. It begins with the sphere of Pluto.
And in this framework, Pluto isn't just a rock, right?
No, not at all. It represents ultimate metamorphosis and the raw, completely unshaped power of the soul. From there, the soul descends into the sphere of Neptune, which is the realm of cosmic unity.
Like an ocean.
Exactly like an ocean. It's the boundless ocean where individual identity doesn't even exist yet. You are just a drop of water in the cosmic sea.
So it's pure abstraction at that point.
Yeah.
No ego, no body.
None. But then it drops into the sphere of Uranus, the divine mind.
Uranus being Uranus, for those used to the modern term.
Yes, exactly. This is the sudden lightning strike flash of awakening. It's the first spark of, wait, I am a distinct idea.
Like waking up in a dream.
Sort of, yeah. But these are still transpersonal forces. They are way too massive for a single human life to hold. So to actually become a person, the descending soul has to cross a very specific, painful threshold. It has to cross Chiron.
Ah, Chiron.
Yeah.
The wounded healer. The text mentions that crossing Chiron is where the abstract becomes fiercely personal. But why does becoming personal require a wound?
Well, because to be separated from the infinite is by definition a trauma.
Oh, wow, yeah.
The soul is ripped out of that boundless ocean of Neptune and forced into the confines of time and space. That separation is the primal wound. And once you cross Chiron, you enter the realm of the visible planets, the traditional spheres of ancient astrology.
And things get a lot heavier.
The density increases exponentially.
You know, I picture this like a deep-sea diver putting on their gear. Like they are on a boat on the surface of the ocean. That's the divine realm.
Okay, I like this.
But to explore the bottom of the Mariana Trench, they can't just jump in. The pressure would crush them. So they have to put on these heavy lead-lined suits piece by piece.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. And the first layer of that heavy suit is Saturn.
The ultimate heavy planet.
Right. The soul descends through the sphere of Saturn and takes on the principles of structure, limitation, and karma. It takes on the burden of time. It suddenly realizes, I am going to die.
Oof, that's a rude awakening.
Very. But then it descends through Jupiter, taking on the capacity for philosophy, hope, and social connection. It's acquiring the tools it will need.
Getting some breathing room after Saturn, then down through Mars, right?
Yes. Through Mars, it gains individual will, aggression, and courage. The engine to actually move.
Okay.
Through the sun, it forges a central, shining identity, an ego core. Down through Venus, it learns harmony, aesthetics, and the desire for relationship.
So it's building a personality now.
Exactly. Then through Mercury, it acquires the logos, the ability to think, reason, and articulate its experience. And finally, the descent crashes into the end of the line, the moon.
The moon.
The moon is the foundational anchor. It represents the physical body, the personal instinctual soul. That is the end of involution. The map is drawn.
The diver has hit the ocean floor. You are born.
You are born.
So we put on all this heavy planetary armor, we plunge to the bottom of the ocean, we hit the lunar body, and we are finally born. All of that just to get the treasure of incarnating.
Yep.
But the actual story of our lives, the reason we're doing this deep dive today, is the struggle to swim back up to the surface with that treasure. Shedding the weights, mastering the lessons of Saturn's limitations and Mars's aggression, and evolving back up to divine co-creation. That's the path of return.
Right. The descent is the theory. The ascent is the lived practice.
But to make that swim back up, you need a starting point. You need a foothold.
Yes.
And the text introduces this concept of the ascendant.
Yes, the ascendant.
Now, for anyone who has casually dabbled in astrology, the ascendant, or the rising sign, is usually dismissed as just the mask you wear in public. Like, oh, that's just how people see me.
Which is a tragic oversimplification.
Right, because Noble Horse treats it as the absolute linchpin of the entire NeoHermetic architecture. He calls it the Ben-Ben.
The Ben-Ben.
What does an ancient Egyptian concept have to do with my birth chart?
Well, it has everything to do with it. Before the ancient Egyptians had the pyramids, they had a creation myth involving the infinite, dark, churning chaos waters of a god named Nu.
Okay, pure chaos.
Right. In the beginning, there was no land, no structure, just swirling potential. The Ben-Ben was the very first primordial mound of solid earth to spontaneously rise out of those chaotic waters. It was the first point of stability. It gave the sun god, Ra, a solid place to stand so he could begin the act of creation.
Okay, so if we map that to the chart, if the 360 degrees of the zodiac are constantly spinning around the earth every 24 hours, that's the chaotic water?
Yes. Out of that spinning, chaotic continuum of the zodiac, there is an exact degree that is rising on the eastern horizon at the precise, localized moment you take your first breath.
Your exact birth time.
Exactly. That degree freezes the sky. It fixes a single point of terrestrial order. It acts as your personal Ben-Ben.
Wow.
Without that point, the planets are just universal forces echoing in the void. The ascendant gives all those planetary gods a specific place to stand in your life.
It's the eye of the chart. If the planets are the horses pulling the chariot, and the signs of the zodiac are the road we're traveling on, the ascendant is the charioteer.
That's the crucial psychological leap here. The ascendant isn't just a mask. It is the guiding consciousness.
Yeah.
It is the logos, the rational mind that is attempting to hold the reins.
It's you.
It's you. It is the lens through which the entire universal drama of your chart is experienced subjectively.
Okay, let's look closely at that mechanical connection then. So I'm the charioteer, the ascendant. I have this engine made of planets that I picked up during the descent.
Right.
But a driver cannot just yell at an engine. A charioteer cannot just stare at a horse and expect it to turn left. They connect through the reins.
The steering mechanism.
Exactly. And in NeoHermetic architecture, the reins, the actual software that translates the charioteer's will to the planetary hardware, are known as the lots.
And look, if you understand nothing else from this material, understand the doctrine of the lots. It is the beating heart of the NeoHermetic system.
Let's define them practically then, because I have to admit, when I first heard the phrase lot of fortune, I pictured an actual physical asteroid floating somewhere between Mars and Jupiter.
Yeah, that is a very, very common misconception, but they are absolutely not physical bodies.
Okay, so what are they?
The lots, or kleros in ancient Greek, are entirely mathematical and metaphysical. You calculate a lot by measuring the exact geometric arc, the distance in degrees, between two specific planets in your chart.
So it's just math.
It's a measurement. Then you take that exact measurement, pick it up, and project it from your ascendant. The point where that measurement lands on the zodiac is the lot.
So it's an invisible point.
Completely invisible.
But if it's invisible and mathematical, how can it possibly affect my life? I mean, this brings up a fascinating historical drama in the text.
Oh, the Ptolemaic devolution?
Yes. Noble Horus talks about a massive fork in the road for astrology. Claudius Ptolemy, who was this towering figure in astronomy and astrology in the 2nd century, basically looked at the lots, took out a red pen, and crossed them out of the curriculum.
He just erased them.
Why would he do that to the beating heart of the system?
Well, because Ptolemy was deeply invested in making astrology look legitimate to the intellectual heavyweights of his time. He wanted it to be accepted as a hard physical science.
Like physics.
Exactly, completely aligned with Aristotelian physics. Aristotle taught that the universe operated through physical causes. Things were heated, cooled, moistened, or dried.
Right.
So Ptolemy kept the planets, because he could easily argue that the sun physically beared heat down to Earth, or the moon physically affected the tides through moisture.
That makes logical sense. But then he looked at the lots.
Right. And he couldn't prove that an invisible mathematical point was beaming heat at anyone.
Because it's not a physical thing.
Exactly. They didn't fit his physical model, so he rejected them. He stripped the entire mathematical and metaphysical layer out of the tradition just to appease the ancient equivalent of a peer review board.
Wow.
He wanted astrology to be nothing more than physical cosmic weather.
But by doing that, he stripped the soul out of the machine. I mean, if astrology is just cosmic weather, then I am just a meat sack getting rained on by Mars and sunburned by Saturn.
There's no conversation happening.
Exactly. There's no dialogue. But the NeoHermetic system restores the lots because it insists that astrology is a daimonic dialogue.
A daimonic dialogue.
And we need to clarify that term because daimonic sounds like demonic, which immediately conjures up images of exorcisms and horror movies.
Yeah, a vital distinction to make here. In ancient Greek context, a daemon is not an evil spirit. It is a mediating force.
Like a go-between.
Exactly. It's a divine messenger that bridges the gap between the immortal gods and mortal humans. When Neo-Hermeticism says the chart is a daimonic dialogue, it means the universe isn't just acting on you physically, it is communicating with you metaphysically.
And the math of the lots is the spiritual geometry of that communication.
You've got it.
The text uses an analogy to explain this math equals metaphysics concept, and honestly, I think it's the best visual in the entire manuscript. It's the dynamic cathedral.
Oh, the stained glass. Yes.
Let's walk through this. Say the entire cosmos is a massive ancient stone cathedral. The planets moving through the zodiac are the sunlight streaming through these massive, intricate, constantly moving stained glass windows.
Okay.
The Earth is the stone floor of the cathedral.
Right.
Now, a lot is not the stained glass window, the planet, and it's not the stone floor of the Earth. The lot is that specific, unique, glowing patch of colored light where the universal ray hits the floor right where you happen to be standing.
It is such a brilliant analogy.
It's the moment the universal becomes fiercely, intimately personal.
Because it shows how the lots translate objective planetary forces into your subjective lived reality. I mean, the planets don't care about your specific career or your specific health crisis.
Right, they're just out there doing their planetary thing.
Exactly. They are universal principles. The lots are where those principles take root in your specific narrative. And the entire system is grounded in a foundational two primary patches of light, two primary reigns that the charioteer holds.
The lot of fortune and the lot of spirit.
Yes.
Let's break those down because they perfectly mirror Plato's two horses. The lot of fortune, this is the dark horse.
Yes. The lot of fortune is structurally tied to the moon. It represents your physical body, your vitality, your material reality, and all the fated circumstances that just happened to you.
The stuff you don't choose.
Exactly. It represents the downward flow of spirit into dense matter. It is the raw material you are given to work with, regardless of whether you ask for it or not.
It's the traffic jam you get stuck in when you're late for a meeting. It's the genetic autoimmune condition you inherit from your grandfather. It's the lottery you win by sheer dumb luck.
All of it.
It is the stuff completely outside of the charioteer's control. But on the other hand, holding the second rein, we have the lot of spirit, or daemon, the light horse.
Right. Structurally tied to the sun. The lot of spirit represents your conscious will, your intellect, your chosen actions, and your deeper vocational aspirations.
So it's the active part.
Yes. If fortune is what happens to you, spirit is what you choose to do about it. It is the upward flow of matter trying to return to spirit. It is the essence of your agency.
Now, the text dives into a technical wrinkle regarding how these two lots are calculated, and at first glance it feels like esoteric math. But it actually contains a massive philosophical statement.
The sect calculation.
Yes, it has to do with sect, whether you were born during the day or during the night. So for a day birth, to find the lot of spirit, you measure the distance from the moon to the sun and project that from the ascendant. But for a night birth, you completely reverse the formula. You measure from the sun to the moon.
You flip it.
Right. Now, I know some modern practitioners argue this is overly complicated and we should just use one formula for everybody, keep it simple. But Noble Horse pushes back intensely on that. Why does reversing the math matter so much?
Because if you don't reverse the formula, you are essentially ignoring the actual lived reality of the human being.
How so?
Let's go back to the core Hermetic dictum. As above, so below. If you are born at night, the sun is hidden below the earth. It is not the dominant light in your sky. The moon is.
Because it's literally dark outside.
Right. By reversing the calculation for night births, the system acknowledges that your soul's geometry must adapt to the specific physical conditions of your incarnation.
Wow, okay. So if you don't reverse it, you're essentially telling a night chart person, hey, I know your physical reality is dark, but we're going to pretend the sun is shining anyway.
Yes, you're invalidating their material existence.
You're ignoring what their sky actually looked like.
Exactly. The math is the metaphysical statement.
Mm.
The lot of spirit is always about moving toward the light, toward consciousness.
Okay, I follow that.
So in a day chart, you measure from the moon, which is the body, to the sun, which is the light. But in a night chart, measuring from the sun, which is hidden, to the moon, which is the light of the night sky, is still the act of moving toward the luminary that is leading the sect.
So you're always moving toward the light that's actually available to you.
Yes, it is an active ritual, encapsulated in a mathematical formula, charting the path from raw material to spiritual awareness.
It perfectly captures the Egyptian concept of Ma'at, the dynamic, delicate balance of opposing forces. Fate and free will aren't enemies in a cosmic battle. They are inextricably linked across the horizon of your chart.
They work together.
But let's expand the map. We have the internal blueprint.
Yeah.
We have the charioteer, the ascendant, and we're holding the reins of fortune, our circumstances, and spirit, our choices.
Right.
But the chariot doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is rolling down a bumpy road, and there are weather conditions, crosswinds, and gravity wells.
You have to account for the environment.
The internal struggle takes place within a massive external context. And this is where the text introduces two more massive pillars, the lot of divine arrows and the lot of divine necessity.
Yes. If fortune and spirit were the internal mechanics of the chariot, eros and necessity are the environmental forces shaping the journey itself.
Eros and necessity, desire and compulsion. Let's start with eros, because when we hear that word, we immediately think of, like, romantic love.
Naturally.
But in this context, it's much bigger than that, isn't it?
Oh, far bigger. The lot of divine arrows represents the universal principle of ultimate attraction. It points to our deepest, most profound desires, the joyful, voluntary unions we seek in life.
So it's what draws us forward.
It is the cosmic inspiration that pulls the charioteer upward. Eros is the reason you want to take the journey in the first place. It's the magnetic pull toward beauty, connection, and creation.
Okay, and on the other end of that spectrum, we have necessity. I'm guessing this is the gravity that keeps the chariot from floating away.
The gravity, the speed bumps, the toll booths. The lot of divine necessity, or Ananke, represents the binding, unyielding forces of the cosmos.
Unyielding. That sounds tough.
It is the realm of compulsion, unavoidable duties, and the fated struggles that constitute the laws of the material world. You cannot negotiate with necessity.
It doesn't care what you want.
It doesn't care about your desires at all. It is the toll you must pay to travel on the road of incarnation.
The text describes eros and necessity as acting as an axis of being in a person's chart.
The axis of being, yes.
Depending on where they fall, whether they are above the horizon in the visible sky or below the horizon in the subterranean realm, they take on very specific roles. One lot acts as the basis and the other acts as the ether.
This is such a brilliant diagnostic tool.
Break it down for us.
So whichever of those two lots falls below the horizon acts as the basis. It becomes the subterranean root, the unconscious foundational drive supporting the entire structure of your life.
The bedrock.
Yes. Conversely, whichever lot falls above the horizon acts as the ether. It becomes the crown, the idealized, highly visible spiritual form that you are consciously striving toward in the world.
Let's ground this with an example, just to make it crystal clear. Say, necessity falls below the horizon in my chart. So it becomes my basis.
Okay, let's play that out.
That means my life is unconsciously driven by a profound, deep-seated sense of duty. I am compelled to build structures, to fulfill obligations, to carry weight.
You're the responsible one.
Right. But because necessity is my root, eros must be my crown, my ether. So while I am busy building all these dutiful structures down below, what I am visibly reaching for, what I aspire to up high, is to find love, beauty, and joy within those structures.
Yes, you want to find the joy inside the duty. And if we flip it, the entire life theme changes.
So if eros is the root,
if eros is your subterranean basis, your foundational drive is a subconscious, pure attraction to life itself. You are rooted in desire.
driven by passion.
Exactly. But your crown, your ether, is necessity, meaning your overarching spiritual goal in life is to learn how to manifest that raw desire into concrete, lasting, responsible forms.
Ah, you aspire to understand the rules so you can ground your passions.
Exactly.
It's an incredibly elegant way to map the psychological skeleton of a person's life. But here is where the text does something I completely wasn't expecting. It takes this ancient Greek mathematical concept of the lot and translates it into the language of modern quantum physics.
It's a leap, but it's a vital, necessary translation for the modern mind to grasp how this actually works in practice.
Walk us through that.
Well, in ancient Hellenistic astrology, a lot was often viewed as a dormant point in the chart, just waiting to be triggered by time, like a landmine.
Right, just sitting there.
But NeoHermeticism updates this using the concept of a quantum probability cloud.
A quantum probability cloud. Okay, so instead of a lot being a guaranteed event, like a rock definitively falling on your head on a Tuesday, it is a hazy, energetic region of high potential for a specific topic.
Exactly right.
You might have a probability cloud for profound wealth, or a probability cloud for a major health crisis, or a probability cloud for stepping into a powerful vocation. And for years, maybe decades, that cloud just sits there, dormant in your chart.
A silent wave function.
But how does it turn into a real event?
Well, in traditional astrology, you wait for a timing technique to act as the observer.
Like in quantum physics, where observing the particle fixes its position.
Yes. There are ancient timing systems, like zodiacal releasing, that act as a celestial clock. When that clock strikes and activates the specific period of your life associated with that lot, the timing technique acts as the observer. It collapses the wave function, and that probability cloud crystallizes into a hard, fated external event.
So the clock strikes and boom, you get fired, or boom, you meet your spouse. The event happens to you.
That's the traditional view, yes.
But the neo-Hermetic twist on this is arguably the most empowering part of the entire manuscript. It argues that the celestial clock is not the only observer. You are an observer.
The charioteer has the power of observation.
I love that.
This is where we return to agency. Through gnosis, which is a state of deep, internal, transformative recognition and knowing, the individual can act as the observer of their own chart.
So I can collapse the wave myself.
Exactly. If you do the rigorous internal work, if you recognize the psychological complex or the spiritual lesson that a specific lot represents in your life, your consciousness can collapse that wave function internally before it manifests as a harsh external event.
I want to pause here because this is massive.
Yeah.
Let's invent a hypothetical person to make this concrete. Let's call her Sarah.
Okay, Sarah.
Sarah looks at her chart and sees that she has a heavy probability cloud a lot, indicating a profound crisis regarding her self-worth and her resources.
Yeah.
It's sitting there dormant.
Waiting to activate.
Right. Now, the traditional view says, Sarah, in 5 years, the celestial clock is going to strike. You're going to go bankrupt, and it's going to force you to learn about self-worth. Brace for impact.
They get ready for the crash.
Exactly. But the neo-Hermetic view says, Sarah, you are the observer. If you look at that probability cloud now, if you go to therapy, if you confront your shadow regarding money and your own value, you can collapse that wave function internally.
She integrates the lesson early.
Right. So when the clock strikes in 5 years, what happens?
Well, if she has achieved that gnosis, the event might not need to happen physically at all.
No bankruptcy.
Maybe not. The energy has already been processed by the charioteer. Or if an external event does occur, it happens as a gentle, confirming realization rather than a catastrophic destruction of her life.
She has transmuted fated suffering into conscious wisdom.
It bridges the gap between deterministic fate and modern psychological agency flawlessly.
It honors the ancient structure of the chariot, but it completely elevates the power of the human consciousness holding the reins. And we see this bridge between the ancient and the modern illustrated perfectly in how the system handles the celestial body Chiron.
Oh, Chiron's a perfect test case for this.
Because Chiron is a modern discovery. It was discovered in 1977. It wasn't known to Ptolemy or the Hellenistic astrologers.
Not at all.
And I know a lot of strict traditionalists just ignore it because it breaks their ancient symmetry. But neo-Hermeticism integrates it without breaking a single ancient rule. How do they pull that off?
By taking the ancient doctrine of the lots and applying it to this modern body. As we mentioned earlier during the involution descent, Chiron represents the sacred wound.
The trauma of separation.
Right, the deep, unfixable trauma that initiates us. The neo-Hermetic system derives 2 very specific lots from Chiron to map exactly how we experience and process this wound.
2 distinct lots. Let's look at the first one.
First, we have the lot of healing. Crucially, this is calculated using the formula of a fortune lot.
Fortune, the dark horse.
Yes. Therefore, it represents the fated external encounter with the wound. It is the crisis, the injury, the betrayal, or the physical illness that happens to you. It is the universe aggressively breaking you open.
The text has a startling quote about this. It says, "It is fortune understanding the very thing that must be healed. The wound is not an accident. It is a fated invitation."
That is the perspective shift right there.
But you aren't meant to just bleed out from the wound, obviously.
No, so the system also calculates the lot of integration, and this is calculated using the formula of a spirit lot.
The light horse, the conscious choice.
Exactly. Therefore, it represents your conscious, willed, intentional response to that trauma. It is the active, grueling effort of the charioteer to transmute that pain into medicine.
Wow.
It is the exact point in your life where you decide that the wound is not going to be your tomb. It is going to be a womb for a completely new level of consciousness.
I love that phrasing. So even when dealing with a newly discovered celestial body, the ancient architectural diet of fortune, what happens to me, versus spirit, what I do about it, perfectly captures the dual nature of human suffering and human resilience.
It seamlessly blends the old and the new.
Okay, let's take a breath and review where we are. We have the foundational blueprint. We have the charioteer, the ascendant, fixing the sky.
Yep.
We have the engine of the planets. We have the dynamic software of the lots, these quantum probability clouds of fortune, spirit, eros, necessity, healing, and integration. We have the macro structure of the soul contract.
The big picture is set.
But a contract isn't just broad strokes and big headings. It's clauses, subclauses, and microscopic fine print. How do we read the fine print of the astrological architecture?
We have to zoom in, way in. The first layer of that fine print involves a structural concept called the terms, or horia in ancient Greek.
Let's demystify this, because in pop astrology, when we talk about someone being a Leo or a Taurus, we are talking about a massive 30-degree chunk of the sky.
It's a huge generalization.
Right. It's like saying someone is from North America.
Yeah,
Doesn't tell you much about their actual neighborhood.
exactly. The 12 signs are the primary macro divisions of the ecliptic. But the terms are unequal, internal boundaries within a single zodiac sign.
And turtle borders.
Yes. The Greek word horion fundamental means a limit, a defining marker, a border. And the text links this directly back to Platonic philosophy, specifically the dynamic interplay between the limit and the unlimited.
Okay, to explain the limit and the unlimited, I want to use an analogy based on the text because it really helped me.
Go for it.
Imagine you are baking. You have this massive, sprawling, shapeless blob of raw dough on your counter. That dough represents the unlimited.
Pure potential.
Right, it is pure chaotic potential, but it doesn't have a distinct form yet. You can't bake a blob.
Well, you could, but it wouldn't be very good.
Exactly. The limit, on the other hand, is a very specific metal cookie cutter.
Precisely. I mean, that is a perfect analogy. When you press that rigid cookie cutter into the shapeless dough, you impose a definitive boundary. Suddenly, you extract a defined shape from the chaos.
You have a star or a heart, something real.
Right, you have something workable. In astrology, the continuous 360-degree circle of the zodiac is the unlimited continuum. The 12 signs are the big, general cookie cutters.
Okay.
But the terms are smaller, highly specific cookie cutters located inside each sign. And each of these terms is governed or advised by a different traditional planet, which marks off a distinctly different qualitative zone.
So if I have Mars moving through the sign of Leo, it isn't just expressing one loud, uniform, fiery Leo energy the entire time.
Not at all.
As it moves degree by degree, it is crossing these invisible internal borders, these horea. It might be advised by Jupiter, and then cross a border into a term advised by Saturn.
And the expression of that Mars shifts entirely depending on which term it's sitting in. The text calls the terms the adverbial modifiers of the contract.
Adverbial modifiers. Think about grammar. If the planet, let's say Mars, tells you what is happening, action, conflict, and the sign, Leo, tells you where it's happening, in the realm of visibility and ego, the term tells you how it's happening.
Yes. Is this Martian conflict being expressed expansively and philosophically because it's in a Jupiter term? Or is it being expressed cautiously, slowly, and defensively because it has crossed into a Saturn term?
The terms provide the specific grammar of celestial influence.
It gives it nuance.
But the NeoHermetic system doesn't stop there. It zooms in even further, past the 30-degree signs, past the unequal terms, all the way down to the absolute atomic texture of the zodiac.
Single individual degrees?
Single degrees. These are known as the monomori. The text calls them divine messengers.
Yes. The monomori system assigns a specific planetary carrier to each and every individual degree of the 360-degree circle.
Every single degree gets a planet.
Every single one. They are the sentinels. Now, they don't confer major sweeping strength to a planet like a sign or a term does, but they provide a highly individualized, subtle, qualitative shading.
A micro-influence.
Exactly. It's the specific momentary counsel needed for that precise microsecond of the chariot's flight.
Now, there's a big technical debate in the historical text about how to assign these single-degree messengers, and the choice Neo-Hermeticism makes reveals the core philosophy of the entire system. There are two ancient methods, the Trigon method and the Pauline method.
Yes.
Can you explain the difference?
Yeah.
And why does Neo-Hermeticism explicitly choose the Pauline method?
Well, this is basically a debate between the chaotic flow of nature versus the structured order of consciousness. The Trigon method, which was documented by an astrologer named Critodemus, is essentially the way of fortune.
Okay, the dark horse again.
Right. It assigns the planetary messengers by resetting the sequence at the start of each sign based on the sign's element: fire, earth, air, or water. And it shifts the sequence entirely depending on whether it's a day chart or a night chart.
So it's constantly changing based on environmental factors. It sounds fluid, but also highly chaotic.
It tracks the fluid, shifting, unpredictable conditions of material nature. It is the blind flow of fate.
Right.
But the Pauline method, sourced from the 4th century astrologer Paulus Alexandrinus, is the way of spirit. It embodies the rigorous consciousness of distinction.
How does it work?
The Pauline method resets the planetary cycle at the exact threshold of every single sign, without exception, and it always starts the sequence with the planet that manages that sign.
Let's use an example to clarify. If we look at the very first degree of Aries, in the Pauline method, the messenger for that specific first degree is always Mars, because Mars is the manager of the entire sign of Aries.
Exactly. And the reason Neo-Hermeticism chooses this method is that it strictly adheres to the ultimate Hermetic axiom. As above, so below. The Pauline method turns the zodiac into a fractal.
A fractal being a pattern where every microscopic part perfectly reflects the structure of the massive whole.
Right. By demanding that the manager of the entire macro sign like Aries also govern the very first microdegree of that sign, the microscopic degree holographically reflects the macroscopic reality.
That's beautiful.
It asserts that the universe isn't just a blur of shifting elemental energy that happens to you. It is a precise, highly structured, intentional palace of consciousness. The Pauli method elevates the atomic structure of the chart from a reflection of blind nature to a reflection of divine order.
So we have the terms defining the zones of action and the monomori defining the exact atomic degree of action. But the text adds another layer, dealing with visibility.
Ah, yes.
It talks about the condition of the planet itself based on its relationship to the ultimate source of light, the sun. It introduces the concept of phasis, the crucible of transformation.
Phasis fundamentally deals with the liminal power of thresholds. It observes a planet's visual cycle, its phases, visibility and invisibility in the sky as it gets closer and closer to the sun. When a planet moves within about 15 degrees of the sun, it crosses the first threshold. It enters the outer ring of the sun's glare. It physically disappears from the night sky. In astrological terms, it is considered under the beams.
What happens to the planet's energy when it goes under the beams?
Its visible, mundane reality is suspended. Its operation becomes covert, hidden, or internalized. The charioteer can't rely on that planet to act openly in the world anymore. It's operating behind the scenes.
But then it gets closer to the sun.
Yes. When the planet gets within roughly 8 degrees of the sun, it crosses the second threshold. It enters combustion.
Combustion, that sounds intense.
This is the fiery netherworld. The heat of the sun intensifies to a breaking point. The planet is no longer just hidden, it is being actively purified.
It's burning.
Its independent agency is completely overwhelmed by the sun's brilliant, blinding light and overarching agenda. It is a trial by fire, a state of profound disorientation where the planet's normal significations feel consumed and destroyed.
Okay, I have to stop and push back on this. Because if combustion is this terrifying trial by fire, a netherworld where a planet's energy, say, my Venus, my ability to love and connect, gets consumed and overwhelmed by the sun, how is this not just another form of deterministic doom?
I get that.
If my planet is in combustion, am I just doomed to suffer a breakdown in that area of my life? How does the charioteer survive the furnace?
That is the exact question the ancient astrologers wrestled with, and the system provides a structural escape hatch, or more accurately, an armor. A planet can survive combustion and even thrive in it if it happens to be in its own chariot.
Wait, another chariot? We have the main chariot of the soul, and now the planets have their own chariots.
Yes, it's a very specific ancient astrological term. A planet is said to be in its own chariot when it is placed in a zodiacal position of inherent structural strength.
Like what?
For example, if Mars is combust to the sun, but Mars is in the sign of Aries, a sign it rules, Mars is in its own chariot. It is on its home turf. Or if it is in its own terms, those internal boundaries we discussed earlier.
So it has the home field advantage, it has structural integrity.
Exactly. When a planet has that structural integrity, it is protected from the worst, most consuming effects of combustion. Even though the external circumstances, the overwhelming glare of the sun are oppressive, the planet's inner alignment allows it to navigate that liminal space with incredible resilience.
It turns what could be a debilitating, destructive breakdown into an opportunity for profound self-mastery. The fire doesn't destroy the planet, it forges it.
Yes.
Like a blacksmith plunging a sword into a furnace to make the steel stronger.
That's the exact mechanism. And then there is the ultimate threshold, the absolute heart of the fire. When a planet gets within roughly 17 minutes of a degree of the exact center of the sun.
Right. 17 minutes. We are talking about microscopic proximity.
This condition is called cazimi, in the heart of the sun. When a planet reaches this exact point, it is no longer overwhelmed by the heat. It has passed through the fire and reached the throne room.
The throne room?
It is a moment of supreme empowerment and divine insight. The planet is temporarily fused with the king, speaking with the full, unadulterated authority of the solar will.
Oh, wow.
It glows with the residual heat of that divine union, carrying a specific seed idea, a mandate, that it will eventually deliver to the world when it emerges back out from under the beams.
It's stunning. It takes this purely mathematical astronomical motion of planets moving near the sun and translates it into a deep, agonizing, and ultimately triumphant psychological narrative of retreat, purification, and empowerment.
It really is beautiful architecture.
But eventually, all of this abstract celestial architecture, the lots, the terms, the combustion has to touch the ground, the chariot has to land. We have to bring the journey down to Earth.
It has to manifest in real life.
And that is the final piece of the structural puzzle outlined in the text, the places, or topoiphoi.
Yes. If the signs of the zodiac are the raw celestial energy, and the planets are the actors wielding that energy, the 12 places are the terrestrial map.
So the 12 houses, basically.
Right. Essentially, yes. They are the mundane, literal, physical containers where human life actually happens. The first place is your physical body. The 10th place is your career. The 7th place is your marriage.
Okay, so the actual life events.
Right. The places are where the vital, physical life force actually establishes its connection to the material world.
Now, out of all 12 places, the text specifically highlights the 4th place as the anchor of the entire system. Why is the 4th place so foundational?
Well, because the 4th place is the nadir of the astrological chart. It is the absolute lowest point beneath the earth. It represents the subterranean soil, the hidden sanctum, the ancestral roots, the home, the grave. It is the load-bearing wall of the entire human life.
The low-bearing wall. If the 4th place cracks, the whole house comes down.
Exactly. The charioteer is engaged in this exhausting dynamic struggle between spirit and fortune, moving out into the world, dealing with eros and necessity.
It's tiring work.
Very. But the charioteer must have a sanctuary to retreat to lick their wounds, and to replenish the reserves of the soul. The 4th place provides that deep structural ballast.
So it's where we recharge.
Yes. It integrates the static, conservative, heavy principle of the physical, our ancestral reality, our physical home, with the mobile, soaring agency of the conscious soul. Without that deep subterranean support, the vehicle cannot withstand the external pressures of necessity. You have to have deep roots to fly high.
So let's step back and look at the blueprint we've unrolled today. We have traced the journey of the soul from the transpersonal oceanic void of Pluto, down through the heavy planetary armor as the descent, anchoring into the physical body of the moon.
That's the involution.
Right. We build a chariot by fixing the sky with the ascendant, the Ben-Ben. We've attached the mathematical reins of fortune and spirit, mapping the tension between our fated circumstances and our conscious choices.
We installed the software.
Yes. We've calculated the invisible quantum clouds of the lots, identifying where we are pulled by eros and bound by necessity. We've read the fine print of the terms in Mon Amour, watched planets burn and forge in the faces of the sun, and finally anchored the whole massive structure in the subterranean load-bearing wall of the 4th place.
It's a lot to take in, but when you look at it in its totality, what Noblehorse has done with NeoHermetic architecture is extraordinary. He has successfully fused the rigorous, physical, deterministic boundaries of ancient Hellenistic astrology with the deeply spiritual, daimonic geometry of the lots.
It's a true synthesis.
It is. He has proved, both mathematically and philosophically, that fate and free will are not locked in some tragic cosmic battle where one has to defeat the other. They are two phases of a single, continuous, elegant rhythm.
And it isn't just theory to debate in an ivory tower. This is a practical diagnostic dashboard for your actual life. You are the charioteer. You are holding the reins. The chart is not a prison sentence. It is simply the map showing you where the friction is going to be, where your latent resources are buried, and what your ultimate mission entails.
You're not a victim of the map.
Exactly. Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought to mull over based on everything we've unpacked today about those quantum probability clouds.
Okay, lay it on us.
Think about the lots in your own life, those invisible points of health, profound wealth, sudden crisis, or ultimate vocation. If they're truly just probability clouds waiting for an observer, what part of your fated fortune is sitting there right now, waiting for your conscious spirit to simply look at it, to recognize it, to do the grueling internal work, and to transform a potentially painful fated event into profound wisdom before the celestial clock even strikes?
It changes the entire paradigm. It means you don't have to be a passive victim of the contract you signed. You are the co-author of its execution.
You just have to be willing to read the fine print. grab the reins, and take the wheel.